Hello everyone, this is Tribecast episode 16 and my name is Marina. Have you ever been curious what do I look like? If yes, we can meet in Kotka in the first days of August, where I will be doing some podcasting and networking at Ship Startup Festival. The event promises to be really interesting and inspiring. And now let's get back to Tribecast studio at P47 co-working space, where we've had two guests this week. First, you'll hear a startup entrepreneur from Silicon Valley, Pekka Pärnänen, and then a Demola facilitator, Heini-Maria Rintaniemi. As I might remind my listeners, we have Nordic Startup School ended up this week, at least the first batch. One of the mentors for the last class of Nordic Startup School decided to have a short interview with me. Well, I talked him into. Hello, Pekka, and please tell our listeners a few things about yourself.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Pekka Pärnänen, or in Finnish Pärnänen. So the last 20 years I lived in Silicon Valley, and it's kind of a regular story. So I've actually taken two companies from Finland to US, but in 1998 I landed in Silicon Valley with a 3D internet startup that time. Life was good until the bubble burst, so there was a time that, I lost the company plus my hair, and then I worked for some other stuff. So I've worked for another originally Finnish company that I actually helped to get into Asian markets, and then I did business development and partnering for that, and that was in the telecommunication space. And then that company was sold to one of the partners, IBM. Then I decided over there that I help companies from Finland, so I was running FinPro Silicon Valley for a while. And I took this, my kind of personal agenda that there needs to be over 50 companies from Finland established in Silicon Valley. And then when I started, there were 12. It ended up to be a little bit longer period that I stayed with FinPro, nowadays Business Finland. But I got to the point that there were 50 companies established, meaning that they had people on the ground. They're incorporated and all that kind of stuff. And that time, the 50 companies was more than all the other Nordics combined. And now I got my own company, which is a boutique business development company called MAD Partners. And kind of MAD comes that I work with a lot of the Nordic startups. And some of them are really crazy, hence the MAD Partners. I also work with some other companies from, Europe and even Silicon Valley-based companies, and help them really to understand the market, like market assessment, business development, and fundraising. Combining with FinPro and my company now, so I've probably worked with 300 plus Nordic companies. So I've seen a lot of different things. My background is engineering, but I think I'm an, engineer gone bad. So I never became a good engineer. I'm my generation guys that probably the only engineer in Finland who never worked for Nokia. And I'm kind of proud of it.
Do those exist?
Yeah, they do. It's me, and I was deported from Finland to, California because of that maybe. But I've done startups pretty much all my life, or then went to work for a bigger company, kind of span off a smaller piece of it. So I don't think that I would ever fit to a bigger company anymore. So that's why I went really small, having my own company now. So I think after that, there's, the next step is zero company, but I don't know.
That was quite a story, I should say. And in your understanding, what's the biggest difference between Finnish startup ecosystem and United States business ecosystem? Okay,
so just defining what U.S. is, because, United States is not a one country. It's a pocket of different things. I always say that, California is not part of U.S. because it's so different. And then San Francisco Bay Area is not part of California because it's so different. Because in California, you have the geek land, which is the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley. Then you have the La La Land, which is, the Los Angeles. And then you have San Diego, which is totally different. So all of these are different pockets. And even though if there's tech, but it's different things. So if I look at the companies that I usually work with, and my ecosystem is the San Francisco Bay Area, the Silicon Valley, the biggest difference in the ecosystem is that one thing is funding. So if you look at the VC funding in Silicon Valley, which is almost 50% of the whole US funding, which is like 5 times more than the whole European VC funding. So it's a $25 billion a year, and that's in the 40 miles strip. All the, those are there. So that's a big difference. And I think that, Finland is, for example, getting into that, how universities work. Because, in Silicon Valley and in the U.S., in many, many places, if you are, professor in the university, you can be part of the startup and all that kind of stuff. And, how it's encouraged to be as an entrepreneur. So if I go to Stanford or Berkeley, and if I ask any class, how many of you guys will be entrepreneurs, think that, out of 100, 90 hands go up. And if I ask the other 10, what happened to you guys? They go like, yeah, I will first like to work with Google or Cisco or something and learn my, get to know the business, and then I'll be an entrepreneur. And then another thing, so you have funding, you have universities that smart people are coming out and want to be entrepreneurs. And then you have the startup scene, which is pretty active. And one of the things is that, you either make it or don't. Fail fast. And that's okay. It's okay to fail. And basically, if you're a, startup CEO going after funding, if you don't have fails, if you don't have scratches on the back, you're not going to be funded because you haven't hit the wall yet. So it's celebrated in a certain way that you have to learn from the trenches and all that kind of stuff. And then you have big companies who buy these smaller companies. And then, so it's kind of this innovation ecosystem that goes around that smart people, they set up a startup, then it's funded, and then it's sold to a bigger company. So 60% of the world's, for example, software exits is to the U.S. And one of the things is that, and I kind of hate that people say that, this is the new Silicon Valley, some other place in the world, like being at Helsinki or Tampere or Oulu or Jyväskylä or St. Petersburg or Tallinn. That's never going to happen. The thing that will happen is that you got to have the Silicon Valley mindset. So build the bridges to Silicon Valley and then have the mindset how it works. And then you can't replicate what's there because it's there, and it's only there because of certain reasons.
So we figured out that failure is a natural thing, a natural state of development. So to say, for a startup entrepreneur, still failure can be quite painful. One of my favorite questions is, in your opinion, what's usually the reason for a startup to fail?
There's many reasons. One of the things is timing. I was in the 3D internet business in 1998, and the internet was based on modems, and we were doing 3D over the internet. It was great, and now you can see, so that was not leading edge, it was bleeding edge. Unfortunately, the bubble burst, and there was no investments to that kind of e-commerce sites with 3D and all that kind of stuff. But now you can see that it's there. You can do, you can do configurations and all the spin things and all that kind of stuff to understand products and, things better. Timing is one of them. Persistence is another thing, is that there's kind of a, stupidity and persistent. What comes first? You have to kind of understand the balance of that. And then one of the things is also, access. And access meaning it might be access to money, it might be access to, to markets, it might be access to customers and all that kind of stuff. So how do you combine that? But the basic thing to succeed is really to do market assessment and understand the market. Then you can just sit back and say, okay, it's not for me yet. But then you actually know why you made that decision. But I think there isn't one answer that, why do they fail? It is bound to happen. It's as hard to answer that you would say that why do some startups succeed? They bet on something. And then I think there's a little pinch of kind of a luck into that, which you can work for the luck. And that is part of the timing and understanding. I think that things change. So, if I would have whatever startup, all these startups, what we saw today, practicing for tomorrow, for the final demo day, all of them can be successful, but it says how do they execute that? So it's really in the end is to understand the timing and then having the access, a little bit luck, but then it comes persistent and execution. And that's, I think that in many cases, what I see in Silicon Valley, local startups over there, execution is key. When they made the decision to do something, they just execute the hell out of everybody else. And then they still might run into the wall, but then the question is that can they pivot if they understand what to do there?
Right. You started talking about the Nordic Startup School. Could you please open up a bit? What was your session about? And if you still have any comments about maybe this idea in general, maybe what you saw today, feel free to share.
So today we saw preparing for the final demo day for tomorrow, which is Tuesday. So there were 10 companies pitching and telling their stories in a 5-minute setup. But I think that these are very important for the companies to do that, even though it's not as important than really getting to the, to the partners and sales and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things which is really always hard is to put everything in a short format. So, how do you make that happen that you can tell the audience engaging story about your business and why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. But I think that overall the companies did a great job. This will be a long night for some of them to work on the final thing for tomorrow, which is part of the startup life, right? They got 24 hours now to work on the, polish stuff and, do things like that. I think that in overall, and this is not over here, but I see that in the Nordics and in Europe, one of the things that usually companies miss is go-to-market. And that means that, how do you sell this, provide your solution or product to the market? What are the ways that you get there? And then kind of incorporates the business model. Somehow it's like there are only a few companies who had it today, even though afterwards talking to these guys, everybody had it. But, my thing is, please tell me that, because that gives me an idea to understand that can you execute that? But that's nothing personal to any of these companies. I think it's very general than what I usually see. But I think the companies did a great job, and, awesome people, nice, business ideas, some of them, getting there early stage, some of them a little bit further. Couple of these things I got really excited. So I'm happy to see that for the demo day, then, pitching these. And I think that, there are some companies who really make it bigger.
Thank you very much for this interview, Pekka, and let's wish our participants good luck on the demo day this week.
All right, thanks a lot.
On behalf of Tribe Tampere, I would like to congratulate Nordic Fit Mama and Revonte Startups on their successful performance at Nordic Startup School Demo Day. And now let's get to the second guest of this week. So, and we have one more guest this week. And this time it's a Demola facilitator, Heini. Hello, Heini, and it's nice to have you here today. Thank you for having time for this interview.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Please tell our listeners a few things about yourself.
Well, my name is Heini Maria Rintaniemi, but people know me as Heikku. Like you said, I'm a Demola facilitator. I'm working for Demola Global. And about myself, well, if we're talking about my background, my educational background, I graduated a few years ago from formerly known as University of Tampere. And I studied there English language. That was my major. And I did too many minors, for example, pedagogical studies or Finnish language or literature studies.
So my next and quite obvious question is, what is Demola?
Well, Demola is a place that provides opportunities basically for companies and students to see how the future will impact their own future. But if we're talking about like very traditional ways, Demola is a global innovation challenge platform.
And what does it mean?
Well, basically it means that we are bringing together university students and companies or organizations in general. We like to call them companies because it's a shorter version. Basically bringing them together to solve real life challenges that are meaningful and create an impact for the future. And the students and organizations, they work together for 8 weeks to solve this challenge.
Right. Last week, I witnessed